got AI, people still need help fixing their printers. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not solving that, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah, you don't get paid to build the button. You get paid for the tens and thousands of hours you put into how to build the button. And
what's going on, everyone? We are back with another episode. I am one of your hosts. My name is Danny Thompson. I'm the director of technology at a company called This.Labs.
And I'm Noel, managing director of engineering for a lovely nonprofit called Resilient Coders, and community member at a wonderful community called 100 Devs.
It is a wonderful community.
Oh boy, we got a little beef that we gotta talk about real quick.
Let's talk.
I saw on your Twitter, you got a little upset. It's all on the Twitters. Oh, sorry, the X's, that you're switching, you're changing teams. You're going to Deepseek.
I am. Hold on. You're telling me you see my post and you don't even drop a like or a retweet, brother? Is that what's going on? Is that where we're at now?
I think that's where it might be. I'm sorry.
Bro.
From now on, I see it in the timeline. I retweet. I apologize. I see the motion. You do tweet a lot.
I don't want your pity likes, okay? I don't want the pity like. God, no. Here I am worried about you. You know, you're moving fires and all this and that. But you got time for Twitter. Go figure. Okay.
Yeah. It was a quick glance. I feel like the world changed, and I needed to see what people were saying. And your post came up first. It's the world changed overnight. We got a new model running around.
Yeah, I do tend to run my mouth a lot on there. I ain't gonna lie. But I did run my mouth about my experience with Deepseek, and so. For those that don't know, I am an AI fan. I'm dabbling in it a lot as of late. Especially at work, we are doing a lot with AI, which is really, really cool. We're doing a lot of trainings. We're talking to a lot of clients around it. And we're doing some high-level stuff with it, which is really, really cool. And so I've personally been obviously interested, and I'm dabbling in it myself. And Deepseek came out, of course. I got to find out what the buzz is about. I started utilizing it, and I used it for right at an hour. And that was all I needed to go cancel my membership with ChatGPT and Claude literally right then and there. I've paid for the pro versions for both. And it was very, very impressive. Very impressive, especially from a code generation standpoint. I was genuinely shocked. If I'm being honest, point blank.
Yeah.
I'm used to social media being the hype train that it is what it is. Right?
Yeah.
And so I often lower expectations. Anytime I see social media going crazy about something, I lower expectations almost instantly because they like to overhype something. And then after the hype is down, they're like, well, it's there, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time where I'm like, this is 1,000% justified as far as I'm concerned. I'm not just shocked how good it is, because it is good. Yeah. It's very good. It's good to the point where I, for a long time, thought the only good quality content I was getting out of ChatGPT, for example, was on the higher end models, which was justifying it, right? Especially around like prompting for code generation. But then the last several months, it's been terrible. And so I started using Claude for everything. But then I was like, well, I can use ChatGPT for and I'll be the first one to say this, I'm constantly worried about how I come across when I write things, right?
Yeah.
Because I know with tone, if I'm speaking to you, you can totally understand the position that I'm coming from when I say something. But through text, often words or tone is misrepresented. And so I'm constantly worried, am I coming across in the right way? Or am I understanding what somebody is sending me accurately? And so I'll often put it through ChatGPT, like, is this the right tone? Is this the tone that I'm going for? And it will gauge it for me to let me know, yes, no, you need to adjust this, stuff like that. I don't really often use ChatGPT for the generation of content itself. I feel like as a society, in a very, very quick time frame, mind you, we have figured out how to identify AI written wording very accurately at this point. And so I don't really use it besides ideation at this point. But I felt like it was worth keeping that subscription for it. From an ideation standpoint and a code generation standpoint, Deepseek knocked it out of the park.
Wow.
I'm thoroughly impressed. It's so cheap. I even ventured off because I didn't really see any tooling where you can kind of utilize it like Copilot or something like that, right? And so I went through this convoluted process where you basically use the API and you use a tool called RuCode, and you can put the API into it and you will pay for the tokens via that. And even that was a fraction of what you would pay in any other way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, not only is it impressive, it's cheaper if you want to use it through that more difficult process, or you can just use the web client the same way that you'd use ChatGPT, and it'll generate the code for you off of prompting. But not only is it good, it's $1 trillion good right now. As the time of us speaking, it has knocked out $1 trillion in the stock market. And I have so many thoughts around this. I've been talking about it all day, but I know I've run my mouth for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this right now?
Yeah. So I think talking from the market standpoint is really interesting. I think when it comes to the market, right, like Nvidia has been trading, I think, above, of course, where it should be, of course. But they were the big dog in the game, so like it's gonna be I think the correction will be there, and so I'm not super worried about it, like the whole industry plummeting, and there's a whole things we could talk about around that. I am curious. Maybe we kind of tailor that. Like I am curious your thoughts, a little bit more understanding of like how you're using it, why you're using it, why you like it, and then I would love to talk more about like the industry implications and what I think is going to happen there, because I'm really curious as someone that I kind of go through these like ebbs and flows with the AI tooling. And I've come to a lot of the same things that you just mentioned, to where I don't ever use it for first generation. It smells too much. There's something wrong. And I've tried so many different ways of I've used all the different, like, because even like Claude, like they have like the sonnet, but then they have like the one that's more for language. I think it's haiku, right? I've tried all of them, and it never kind of really talks like me. It uses too many different languages. I have all these different custom prompts for it. It's always like the first pass is never good. But if I can write something in my own voice and then have it clean it up, I have one now actually from talking to Quincy from Free Code Camp, where it's like, remove all of the words that might get me banned from spam list on email, right? And so I'll type out my thing, it'll remove all the words for me, and then I know I have something that I can like actually email out. So for me, like a lot of these things that might have been like manual processes have been revolutionized. Like I saved so much time, but that first pass kind of always sucks, and so I don't use it that way either. I'm starting to feel that way with my code too. I think when we first talked about AI on the podcast, like one of the first episodes, I was like, I just don't get it. Like to me, like when it outputs something that's like really hard to use, or like just doesn't feel like how I would do it, or there's always just something that kind of gave me pause around it. And I fought really hard to like use all the tooling that would make it easier for me. And I have these like magical moments, right? The first time I used Replic's agent, my mind blew. Like I was able to like build something that I had in my backlog. It did it by itself, and it exported something that I could start with. And I liked that it wasn't using all these random frameworks I've never touched or tried. It was just simple node, did everything I needed to do, and I was able to run with it. All right. And so I have these moments where I'm like, this is everything. And then I get back into like writing my normal code in Cursor, and then I kind of bang my head against the keyboard every once in a while, and then I kind of go back to like not wanting to use it. So I'm really curious about when you say like it like changed everything, it makes sense, it works. Like what are you seeing that's making you cancel your other subscriptions, use it, and run with it?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember, and this is like a problem of being on too many podcasts. I can't remember if this was a talking point on this podcast or a different one. So refresh my memory. Have we talked about like agentic AI on this podcast?
Not really. I think we'd like touched like high level, but nothing.
So I'm gonna cover that in a bit. But one thing that I'll say here is, I'm with you when it comes to Cursor and stuff like that. The small things, minute things, it's fantastic at. Or, for example, windsurf. That's something that I've been messing with lately. But for this, I was using VS Code to use RuCode in order to get the Deepseek API working with it. But I've had the same problem where I'm constantly reprompting, constantly trying to get it to work, and it gets annoying. And sometimes the suggestions are just terrible. I've had this recent issue with Cody AI, even though I was a pretty decent fan of it for a long time. I kept talking about it. I've even been having this issue with them for a while. And so for me, what I started doing was just going back to the tried and true, use ChatGPT, use Claude, the web clients, give them the code that I'm asking specifically instead of the additional context, so it can just focus on that situation. But even me, I talked about it either on this podcast or another one, where I was like, man, it took me like 22 reprompts before I finally got what I wanted, which is like too much, right? And so for those that don't know, I've been during the Christmas holidays, I was speed running building an entire event platform. And I really, really enjoyed that process. But when I was about to start making tutorial content on it, I realized through the mentionings of many others, I actually have something here. And so I closed sourced everything right away. I hid the code, and I'm like, I'm actually going to try and build this thing out as not like a tutorial now, but like a legitimate side business, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to make any money if I'm being real, but I do think it's going to solve a lot of problems. And so the only real time that I have to work on this is the weekend, because during the week I'm working. I don't really have multiple hours where I can just sit down and dedicate to this. And so for Deepseek, I was like, let me try and work on this platform using this instead of anything else that I was doing. The number of reprompts that I had to do were minimal at best. There were situations where the first time it got it right, and I was shocked. Then there was situations where it was like 6 or 7, 8 times. But to me, that's still so much lower than 22. The other thing is, I can see the reasoning Deepseek is using. This is the big difference between any other AI tooling. So in Deepseek, when you make the prompt, it visibly shows you through text the AI talking to itself as it reasons with your request. And so through that, I can see how it's arriving to the solution that it's giving me. It's now allowing me to reprompt it with a significantly more focused approach, so that way I can now adopt to the reasoning it's using, so that way I can get the actual answer that I want. And this is what I believe ended up delivering a stronger reduction in the number of reprompts, but a more accurate solution to what I wanted. And because of that, that 1 hour felt like 4 to 5 hours of me using ChatGPT to get the solutions that I wanted. And that is what sold me on it. And I think by design, they were very intelligent and they knew what they were doing by showing the reasoning. Because I've seen so many posts just around this one thing by itself, because people feel that it's being overly honest and they're feeling more attached to it because of that. And I would have to say, from my position, I do agree with that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Yeah, and I think the industry has responded in kind too, where I feel like a lot of folks are feeling, I saw a lot of people in my timeline doing the same thing. Like, why am I using all these other tools? As OpenAI is kind of ratcheting up, like I pay for the $20 a month plan, but now there's the $200 a month plan. If you want to operate, you got to be on the 200, not on the 20. And then this model comes out of nowhere. It's extremely cost effective. It isn't playing the same ratcheting games that these other tools are playing, and now we're kind of in a different world. And so it's wild to see how effective it can be, and then it's delivering on something that has such, it's not even just the model itself, but like the approach they're taking to it, which is pretty wild, because people are saying it was a quant firm's like side project.
It was.
And so maybe they had like real use case. Maybe it was like, I'm trying to use this tool and like these are the things I'm running into, and maybe that kind of trying to fix their own problems, solutions kind of rang out here. But yeah, like you mentioned, the market swung very quickly. A lot of people are canceling their subscriptions, they're utilizing it, and we saw kind of the fall of Nvidia, like you mentioned, in terms of the stock tumbling a little bit. And I think we should maybe talk a little bit about that. What does it mean? I've gotten a lot of messages from people being like, is it all over? Is is the AI done? Like, what's going on? So I think maybe talking a little bit about that and our thoughts and feelings could be really helpful too.
Yeah, I think this is a good and interesting time. Number one, I believe, I can't remember who said this online. My gut says Theo said this in a tweet today or yesterday. But the thing is, like, I was already thinking this. He tweeted out, which just shows like we're on the same wavelength on this one. Yeah. And we've kind of all been saying this for a long time. A lot of people that overvalued Nvidia, they don't really understand how AI works, and it shows. Yeah. And the fact that this price drop in the market, I think it also emphasizes that people don't know how AI works, and it shows. Because I can't see why Deepseek coming out would threaten anything else going on. But I do believe Nvidia and all these other companies were way overpriced. They knew it too. Like, come on. There's no way out of nowhere a graphics card company, the guy ends up becoming like one of the richest men in the world out of nowhere. Like, he was successful already, now the richest. Now he's starting to wear leather jackets everywhere because he feels like he's a rock star. Like, I don't have any hate towards them. I do it. Like, I have Nvidia graphics card right here on my computer as we speak, right? I'm a fan, but there's no rational reason that I truly believe it should have been one of the most prized things around, period. There's enough competition in the market for it. But with that being said, the fear is what creates uncertainty within the market. People are worried, what does this mean about the American market now? I think majority of people are going to be just fine. It's not changing anything. It's not shifting anything. I think the interesting point of this is for DeepSeek, it is true. The entire building of this AI model was a side project. Their core business is trading. And so they even said that the biggest reason why they were able to do this so cheaply was not anything that there's no secret sauce besides their team. The CEO literally came out and said, this is 100% because our team and the people that we have on our team and our company culture. That's the reason why we're able to do this. And I think this should be like a big indication to a lot of people. I would have loved to have been a fly on the walls at OpenAI over the weekend because you know dang well they had weekend meetings immediately. Yeah. And I could just imagine one phrase, and they open source it? Because I swear that because that's the game changer here. That's it. That's what's going to eradicate majority of these overvaluations, because there's nothing stopping anyone from wanting to recreate this themselves because that code exists for everyone. And I think this is a big, I don't know the motives of why they would do this unless the goal was we're just tired of seeing the overvaluations. Because before that open sourcing, that's a gold mine for any company that was in the AI space. Or
trading firm, right? Did they short Nvidia before they released the model? I didn't even think about that. I wonder if that's true.
It could be true.
Because if a trillion fell off, they made a lot of money off of cranking out a new model. That'd be wild. Because they said it was like a $6 million total cost, right? Plus their team building it. So $6 million total cost, and your team spending a little bit of time to take a short position. I don't know if that's any type of trading violations, but that would be wild if true.
I mean, I don't know how it could be a trading violation for you to bet on yourself, but
yeah, there you go. True.
Because it could have just been a blip on the radar that nobody saw.
No.
I doubt even from their side that they saw this being as big as this is right now.
No.
It would be really hard for any company to predict that.
And the open piece is what I really love about it too, right? I think I've dabbled a lot with like Llama, and I use Ollama on my own machine. I love my MacBook Pro because it has 128 gigabytes of RAM. I can spin up a lot of these, like, I mean, it runs at like 8 talks per second, but like it works, and I can have it locally. And so I think one of the big things we saw folks being worried about was, it's this Chinese model that's coming out, and there's all this weird stuff that came out around that, but it's open source. You can run it locally, put it on Together AI, run it there if you want. That's a huge game changer.
Yeah, you reminded me of two conversations that I had because LinkedIn, of course, is LinkedIn. And so after sharing this, got some comments, got some posts. One comment, of course, they were like, are you concerned with your data and how it's being utilized? And they specifically said people in China, they're very smart. They can kind of do whatever. And I was like, and I literally said, brother, they already got it.
Yeah.
And I sent screenshots of Google gets in trouble for sharing data with China. Facebook gets in trouble for sharing data with China. It's like, if I give it to them, they're getting a price tag for it. If I give it to them directly, it's fine. I can give them what I want to give them. And I'm not prompting anything crazy here, right? Like, I'm using the web client in that regard. I'm not, or the localized version. I'm not over here installing on my phone. I think the app has crazy permissions that it's asking for. I wouldn't personally install the app. But for that being said, there's tons of apps out there that are already doing that. We have applications all over that people are utilizing. We all know the hype with Red Note that came out, and people were literally installing applications directly from mainland China and giving them all the information, including keystrokes. So it is what it is at that point. I'm not too worried
Welcome
about that.
to what every other website and application does. You are not reading those terms. You're not reading through, most people are not reading those app permissions.
Yeah.
Not even reading through like the Chrome, like the Chromebook, like not the Chromebook, the Chrome apps, right? Like those have wild things. Like how many people reads every word on my every site I've ever gone to? Like you've already done all these things. And it's like I think there's worthwhile to think about kind of like, of course, like your threat level, right? Like I have my secondary laptop. I have it all the way down to like Libre boot. Like I have that piece too. If you're an organizer, if you're somebody that like needs to have that hard defense, of course you're going to be concerned about these things. But a lot of folks already have given up all those permissions. Not that we should create a culture where we do just give it, but I think it's wild to think that this is something like above and beyond. And I just kind of hated that discourse that spread around that like this is something that not everybody else is doing. If you're worried about it, great. Now you're enlightened. Look at every other site that you use with that same fine-tooth comb because you're giving it up. And you can run it on your own hardware if you want. If that's a problem for you, that's why the open source piece for me is like,
yeah. The second conversation, which is technical, someone had said, Danny, I think a lot of people aren't noticing, but OpenAI is still involved with Deepseek. And I was like, I don't understand how you can come to that conclusion. That's a very, very bizarre thing because it's not the same at all. It's a completely different LLM. It's a different organization, everything. And they sent me a screenshot of a code snippet from the docs where it said import OpenAI from OpenAI provider, and then it starts saying const model equals client OpenAI. And so if anyone listening to this has this understanding as well, no problem. It just means you don't fully understand how it's being utilized. Let's clear up that misconception for you. There's no demonization of not knowing information here. And essentially what Deepseek did, which is why it's also a big deal, is instead of creating a brand new provider that you have to go through all this headache of trying to deal with, they know applications currently exist utilizing OpenAI API or some other model, right? Yeah. And so what they did was instead of creating a new provider where you have to re-architect your application, they're now saying, no, you can use our exact API in OpenAI's provider, just swap out the APIs.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Genius. Yeah.
And so they tapped into that, or you can do like a localized version if you download it locally. You can use even Olama instead of OpenAI. Just because they're using their providers, it has nothing to do with them being in cahoots together to do this. Because I can tell you right now, Sam Altman, ain't no way he's happy that this came out.
No. Yeah, like you said, I would love to have been a fly on that wall for the that weekend. Yeah, I'm also curious too. They seem to kind of be pushing now that kind of, I think, initial praise and kind of shift in the market a little bit. I think gave them a little bit of fire. They just released the vision model. Have you looked at that at all?
Yes, barely. I've been working nonstop, but Sunday, I mean, that's basically when I had time to like actually dabble in this, and Monday. But I will say that I won't be shocked if we start seeing reasoning models pop up from the other ones based upon this. I think it's going to be very, very hard, regardless of organization or first to market or name recognition at this point, for someone to be like, wow, we can put this cat back in the bag. Like this has opened up a can of worms that I don't think people were expecting. And I'm very, very interested to see how the next 6 months play out. I think it's going to be very interesting, especially in the whole agent side of things. So OpenAI, the big thing, and this is why the timing of this was incredible, because OpenAI was like, we're about to go crazy viral off of this. They just launched their agentic model so that way people can make their own AI agents. Yeah. And nobody's talking about that. Like that was a blip on the radar. Like, cool, you got it, but did you see this? And this is a problem. So I will say right now more than ever, and I even watched the interview with Satya from Microsoft, and Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, I'm on a first name basis. I'm not. He does not know who I am.
We summer together.
Yeah. Anyway, he had said something that I've been feeling for a while, and I think he kind of summarized this in an interview he was doing. He said he believes that this is the era that could potentially be like the death of SaaS products, and the new evolution will be agent models. And to further emphasize this, I've been seeing a lot of interesting agent items be created because of this, including one that I kind of got to mess with where basically, and I got to interview a couple creators of this tooling. They created a tool that it's basically the best way to put it. I'm trying to find like the best way to explain this. It's a debt collector, an AI debt collector. And they put it in a call center with other call center workers that are basically bill collectors trying to get, obviously, the bills collected, right?
Yeah.
The AI model was so good, the agent AI, that people didn't realize that they were on a phone with an AI model. Not only that, the rate of which the AI model collected the debts was higher than the humans.
That's wild.
So much so that one of the models or tools that I saw, it replaced 1,000 bill collectors in a call center, which is a scary number when you think about it. But the reality is, for the vast majority of bill collectors, these are not, even to the bill collecting industry, they look at it as transitionary jobs, meaning the rate of retention is 3 times lower than any position in existence. People stay there for a very short period of time just to get enough money. They go there. And because of that, call centers have to keep almost triple the staff that they need because they just know the rate of which people will stick around is so low. Due to this now, they can reduce that number of overhiring. They still have to overhire because the turnover rate is just so high. But not only are you able to reduce that, but you're able to increase your collections. I think that's a win for them, obviously. Reduction in overhead and more income coming in. That's a great win. And so because of that, this is going to be really interesting times. Like I'm seeing organizations go from like 0 to 10 million in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, instead of like the traditional several years, just because of how impactful this is. A lot of the agent models that we're seeing right now, there's not necessarily automation of developers and stuff like that. We're not seeing that. What we're seeing is the automation of the very monotonous tasks. The boring, mundane, very predictable patterns. The problems become when, like, say, for example, I was listening to an interview where a company tried to automate customer service for like a retail store, right? The problem was there's so many unpredictable prompts that the AI couldn't handle it, and it was just a complete utter failure in the highest terms of the word. They killed the whole project. They cannot really do this for unpredictable patterns. And so that is the issues right now, which it's so complex for them to deal with. It's just not worth it. But predictable over and over scripts, that's going to be something that agent AIs can kind of play a role in.
And I think like I'm even having a shift in my own thinking. Like that is like intrinsically scary to me. There's 2 million call center workers in the United States, right? That's a lot of jobs are going to be impacted very, very quickly, especially if you're in a spot where, like you said, you have a very predictable like sales tree, basically, right? So that's wild. But at the same token, it's coming. It has to come. The savings that you have from a tax reduction in staff, the highly like weight, like maybe you can even like self-learn so it can close better, the ability to like track previous responses from folks in a way that like the next time they call can do it in a bit like that's just going to completely change so many industries. Going to need a lot more hiring to fix a lot of these things. You're going to have more software engineering demand. That's why I'm not worried about software engineers ever. I think about any of these things, and there's so many things that have to be changed, tweaked, modified, added, that I just see it. Yes, everyone else, you're screwed. Software engineers, we're going to need a lot more of them. But 2 million call center workers and that already on the market is kind of wild. But you said something too at the beginning, which is this idea of like the end of SaaS. And I can feel my brain already thinking in different ways that would traditionally maybe be a SaaS solution that are now agent solutions, right? So I'm trying to get healthy in the new year. You're a big inspiration on kind of your journey. And so like, all right, trying to eat better, and I have a lot of recipes that I want to cook. But this week I'm flat out. I don't got time for anything. Like every minute is scheduled. Like it's horrible. It's like I need to go grocery shopping. I need to cook. Like all these things are a problem. So it's like, all right, I have these recipes I want to just throw them in my Instacart app. I want to just throw them in my Uber Eats delivery. Like how can I go from recipe to like the food showing up at my house? Right. And before that used to be like an app that you would build, you would figure out how to connect these different APIs. But now, why can't I have an agent that does this? Why can't I use Operator that knows how to click and move around and do all these things? And that can be solved in what, a couple minutes of me showing it how to do it. So like that whole concept of being able to like solve real problems, not even spinning them out to an idea, even that whole concept of like the individual having an idea and these systems being able to develop it, and now it's open source so you can run it locally and do it too, right? Like I think the next 5 years are going to just see this massive shift in how we think about like these normal inconveniences, and where we used to seek out technical like solutions or products or services that were already built, we'll either be able to build them, or there will be some sort of agent that you can utilize that can do a lot of these like minor inconvenience things, not only for like personal consumer level. When it comes to businesses, so much hiring and so much friction in a business is doing the same damn task over and over and over again. If there's an agent that can fix it, your hiring costs go down, your completion rates go up. That's a revolution that's coming for sure.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting times. Like AI is shaping in a very short period of time how much people are doing just on their average everyday tasks. Yeah. And so I'm excited to see where this turns out, especially with the whole agent idea. Like it's even got my mind wondering, like, I want 10 million. So it's like, what am I going to build with that? And one cool thing about it is, if you're not a great developer, you can make a pretty mediocre agent in a short period of time. If you are a great developer, you can make something industry shifting. So it just further emphasizes one thing that we've been saying. You still got to learn how to code. Like there's just no way around it. So if you're in a situation where you're like, I'm done learning what an array is, where's this 10 mil at? It's probably not going to work out for you. But for some others, you might be in a much better position.
Yeah.
You want to do Ask Danny and Leon before we call it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
This was a fun episode.
This was cool. I like it. Kind of in line with what we've been talking about, and maybe kind of the impact AI is going to have on software engineering roles. We touched on it very, very briefly. Someone said, a software developer at Amazon said, with AI, projects that took a week take hours now. And he said it's the beginning, and it's starting to explore things outside of software and software development. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the thoughts that I generally have around this, right, is it's the writing on the wall. Like this is part of what it is. You can either jump on the bandwagon and learn how to use the tool efficiently, or you're going to be behind the times. And that's not just an AI thing. That's anything development. So this will shift how previously we were doing things at the beginning of my career versus now. But what I would say is the need for a developer doesn't disappear. And so like the biggest value that you have is, and I've said this before, I'm so glad I thought about this. How many times over the years have I said, no one is hiring you because you know syntax. They're hiring you for your problem-solving capabilities. That is exactly what this is doing. Do you know how many people from an average background try to prompt things and they get so mad, they're like, it's still not doing what I want? Because you don't necessarily know how to break your problem down to a level where the AI is a useful tool. You're just saying, hey, I want this. Well, that's not how I wanted it to look. There's no specification. There's no breaking down the programming logic that is needed. So you're now breaking down your programming logic to such a level that you can now use the AI as the tool that it is to prompt it, saying, I need this exact thing here. I need this array to work in this situation here. I need to display this information in such a way that I'm getting it from this direct API, and I need to utilize it like this. Or this middleware is giving me a problem. I need to prompt it in this way. The average person does not have a clue what any of this is doing. It can make something front-facing, something with basic functionality work the way that it wants, but it's not going at a very large-scale level. And so because of that, that's where that logic is taking effect and really kicking in. I don't care what organization you're working at. At the end of the day, that problem-solving skill set, that's what's making the AI do those things. And I think because many of us, we forget how we've gotten to the level that we are with the way that we approach problems, that we forget how much the average person doesn't know. Do you know, we got AI, people still need help fixing their printers. Like, yeah. I mean, if that's not solving that, as far as I'm concerned, the holidays are still a mess. But that is just a very clear indication on where we are in utilizing these tools.
Yeah, you don't get paid to build the button. You get paid for the tens and thousands of hours you put into how to build the button and the best button, and how when you click it, all these other things happen. And that's always going to be true. And I think it's such a wild question. This is the most exciting time there has ever been to be a developer in the past of all time. You could have these pet projects and build something. You can pull knowledge from somewhere else. Like, what are you talking about? This is like, it doesn't get better than this. This is like accelerating what we can do, getting rid of all the crap that we don't want to do, enabling us to have superpowers that we never thought possible. This is the most exciting time to be a software developer. And every single industry is about to be impacted by the software that's going to be written. So are you going to be impacted or writing the software? Full stop. Where do you want to be?
I remember the arguments around SaaS when SaaS started growing and people were freaking out. Like, they're building a whole company that just exists to solve this one problem, and I was doing it at work, right? I don't want to be the type of person that's like, some of the fear isn't real. I think it's justified. Like, people are scared, it's nervous. But to be completely closed off from that is just a wild take. And I can't remember if we discussed it on this podcast. I know I said this recently, though. I'm in consulting, right? Like, This.Labs is a tech consultancy. And one interesting thing here is a lot of these consultants out here, like big consultancies, they're charging like $500 an hour, $600 an hour. All this AI stuff, right? People are seeing that. They're still charging $500 an hour, $600 an hour. That hasn't changed these rates. And so if the replacement of developers was anywhere close, you would see all these consultants be like, hey, we need to go down in price to make sure we stay competitive with AI or something like that. Yeah. That has not been the case. Like, sure, and some people say like, oh, we aren't getting business like we used to. I think that's not an AI thing. That's a market thing. Like, we're not seeing hiring at the level that it was pre-pandemic or at the height of the pandemic. A lot of people just reference that timeline because that was 3 years ago. Yeah. But they're not looking at what was it 7 years ago. We're at a very similar rate in that regard, where we're fighting to gain business. I think that's just the ebb and flow of the market. But if AI hasn't replaced $500 an hour devs, I think y'all at 30, 40, $50 an hour, you're just fine.
Yeah. And I think the thing that was really scary too was we had these really large model providers that it was closed off. I could see a world where the shift of power went from the many to the few very quickly in a walled off garden. But when somebody can take 6 million and as a side project and change the whole world, and it's open and you can take it and do the same thing, that helps me sleep a little bit better at night too.
Y'all, it's been real. It's been fun. This has been actually a really fun episode to talk about and geek out about. If y'all like this, do us a favor, please. Drop a like on this podcast. I've been seeing y'all drop more likes lately, so we really, really appreciate it. But those likes, that little star on whatever platform you're listening, it really helps us out. It makes us feel good. It lets us know that you actually like these episodes that we're coming out with. Drop a comment, because I'll be honest, we see all the comments. We talk about it. We have meetings, not really, but we do talk about the comments. We share it in a private chat with me and Leon, so we can kind of see like what's going on.
And you saw in the beginning how in the feels we can get when we don't leave a like or a comment or a retweet on one of our posts on Twitter. So you know that affects us. It affects us deeply. So if you're listening on your podcast provider of choice, give us a like. It would mean the world.
Yeah. And if you don't know, we are on YouTube as well. So if you listen to this podcast, please check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, and all the good stuff. I think that's just a further way to kind of get more people exposed to all this content. Let us know in the comments. Like, we look at all the comments. Let us know in the emails. We look at the emails. The emails have been fantastic. We actually have one that I want to do like an episode on or have a conversation on, because
let's do it.
I think one in particular that I saw last week is really, really interesting. And as a spoiler, we have some really, really interesting guests coming up. Some really interesting guests. So I'll even shout them out real fast now. I'm thinking about it. If you're listening at this part of the podcast, you're OG. You're getting the scoop that probably other people aren't. Secrets. Yeah. We have Dev Agrawal, who is a maintainer for Solid.js. He's coming on. I recently have been messing with a lot of Solid.js lately. I had an interview with Ryan Carniato that was really, really incredible. And one topic in particular that I really enjoyed talking about was single flight mutations. So we're going to kind of dive into that to explain that a little bit more. But we have a lot of stuff kind of up our sleeves. We have Shruti Kapoor coming on. She is what I reference her as that React girl, because if you go to the React conferences, if you see the videos, she's all about that. And we're going to do a whole episode on React 19. I've got a lot of thoughts. She's going to do a lot of thoughts. I think that's going to be a really good one. We have my GOAT, one of the biggest people in my life, James Q. Quick. He's going to be coming on for an episode. We're going to be talking a lot of JavaScript on that one. So we got a lot of interesting stuff coming up, y'all. We want to give y'all more technical episodes. We want to make sure that when you're coming here, you're growing and getting some value for your time, and you're growing your skill set. So hopefully be on the lookout for those. We're going to be recording those real soon, actually. And from there, we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace, everybody.